Hi, everyone. Just admitting some more people into our meeting. Um, yeah, let me know if you can hear me now. I'm muted now or unmuted now. And yeah, sorry, I was just dealing with some screen sharing issues. You should be able to see my screen now that's showing the California Art Supply Mutual Aid training.
I can hear you
Yes.
and see you.
Okay, thank you, Karma.
You're welcome.
And yeah, so people may be trickling in, but I wanted to get started now in order to be respectful of everyone's time. We are scheduled for an hour. So today's info session is about the California Art Supply Mutual Aid Training Program. This is the first time that we are offering this training. It was funded by the California Arts Council, and we are very excited about it. So brief introduction, I'm Claire. I'm the Executive Director of Broadroom Creative Collective. Please take a moment right now to change your name in the Zoom chat to include your pronouns if you're able, and to introduce yourself in chat. Let us know where you're from, and also grab some water or snacks or anything you need to get cozy and comfortable during this meeting. This session is being recorded for folks who are unable to join us today. We will be sending out a follow-up email with the slides and recording as soon as possible. And you are able to turn on closed captions if you would like. There should be a CC button on the Zoom screen that will let you read closed captioning as we go through. Today's meeting will be about an hour long. We'll try to stick as closely to that as possible. And we're going to have 2 breaks for questions during the presentation, but you can also email me following the session if you have any questions that don't get answered today. And there's also going to be a follow-up email with questions answered, as well as the slides from this presentation, and as well as the recording of this presentation. Julia, who is our program coordinator, is also joining us today. They're here to take notes, document questions. You may see them answering questions in the chat as well as they come up. But that'll also give us an idea of what questions need to be answered following the end of the presentation. All right. So we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. Broadroom stands in solidarity with all of the people indigenous to the lands that we are on. We acknowledge that our work takes place on the now occupied traditional lands of the Miwok, Maidu, and Nisenan people, as well as the people native to the lands wherever you are today, who are the past, present, and future stewards of this place. We make this first step in our journey to develop relationships and cultural competencies to truly support Native sovereignty. Okay, so why mutual aid? The Free Art Supply Closet is rooted in mutual aid, meaning it was created by the community for the community and continues with community support. Mutual aid basically is a practice of direct action and cooperation in a community wherein people give what they can and take what they need. Mutual aid builds resilience in a community that's based in community members caring for each other. Sorry, I might seem distracted once in a while. I'm just admitting more people into the presentation as we go. So as we begin to talk about this program, it is important to know that we're looking for folks who want to start a mutual aid project. That means that the art supplies given away will not be sold. We will discuss fundraising tactics and ways to make the project financially sustainable in the training. but selling art supplies directly contradicts with the program that we've created and will be disqualifying for applicants. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover who is eligible for the program's timeline, and provide an application overview. We'll have a break for questions between program timeline and the application overview, and then we will have another question and answer portion at the end of the meeting following the application overview. Okay. So eligibility. The California Art Supply Mutual Aid Training Program is limited to folks based in California with projects that will also be based in California. Following the conclusion of this training program, participants may expand their program however they see fit. If that means expanding into Mexico, if you're based in Southern California, expanding into Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, Nevada, wherever is a close state to you, you can do that following the training program. Or if you want to do something else that moves the program out of state, that's fine. Just for the for this program, for this training, it has to be based in California. And that's just because that the funding is from the California Arts Council, not because we don't think that there should be art supply mutual aid happening throughout the country and throughout the world. Individuals, groups, both formal and informal, clubs, businesses, and organizations are also eligible to apply. And the proposed project must provide free art supplies. And lastly, all ages are welcome to apply. Anyone from teens to elders are encouraged to apply. Okay, so program timeline, we've broken out the program into 3 sections. The first one is what we're in right now, the application and interview period. Then we will move into the virtual training modules that will be next winter, January through March. And then the one-on-one check-ins and in-person visits from me will be in April to June of next year, so next spring. The application process has already begun. The application period is from October 1st through October 31st. We're currently accepting applications. Applications will be reviewed by a panel of judges from our Artist and Community Committee, as well as Broadroom staff and possibly a board member in November. We will then interview finalists in early December and send out our decisions by the end of December 2020. And then we'll move into the virtual training portion of the program, which really is the beginning of the meat of the program, basically. So twice per month, we will have virtual meetings covering various topics, including designing your project, sourcing donations, fundraising, and sustaining the project for years to come. We'll include guest speakers with diverse experiences in mutual aid that are different from Broadroom's experiences with mutual aid. And by the end of the virtual training, we want participants to have a clear plan for their art supply mutual aid project. And then in the spring, we'll move into the one-on-one check-ins. We will no longer have twice monthly group virtual trainings. We'll have one-on-one check-ins with representatives from the participants group or organization or the individuals that are participating with a Broadroom staff member. These check-ins will be a little less formal. We'll do 1 to 2 per month, and they'll be there to offer personalized help and assistance as participants are getting their project up off the ground. And then there will be 1 in-person visit from me to the site sometime in late spring, most likely end of May, June of 2023. Okay, so we made it to the questions portion. At this time, I will, let's see, stop sharing briefly. And Julia, are you able to unmute yourself and maybe read through any questions that have come up in chat yet?
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat yet, so if anyone wants to put anything in the chat, feel free to, or just speak it out too. I'm sure that works fine.
Yeah, feel free to just unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Christine. I'm from Sacramento, and I'm just curious, Claire, how you started this and what brought you into bringing art supplies to the community and doing mutual aid.
Yeah, so the free art supply closet was started during the pandemic. We got funding from the city of Sacramento. It was a small grant, $5,000. And we reached out to folks that we'd helped through our Sacramento COVID relief fund that we started specifically for artists. So we did the COVID relief fund basically like March of 2020 through September of 2020. And then we went back to those people that we had distributed direct cash relief to and asked them what would be helpful for them moving forward through the pandemic. And one of the ideas that we suggested was access to art supplies. And that was something that resonated with the people that filled out the survey. So we ran with it. We started out with just providing free art supplies to artists that had been impacted by COVID, so had lost work as a result of the pandemic. And then after that grant funding period ended, which ended in December of 2020, we kept going with the free art supply closet and extended it to anyone that wanted to come in and pick up free art supplies, not just focused on artists. And so now the free art supply closet has been in existence for 2 years, and our model is based in mutual aid, which is essentially art supplies are donated by the community and then given back to the community. We oftentimes have people that not only donate supplies, but pick up supplies at the same time, which is kind of like a perfect manifestation of mutual aid, wherein you take what you need and leave what you can. So it's worked very well. The model has worked very well for us. There are just an abundance of people with an abundance of art supplies that they don't need or want anymore. But they're, maybe moved on to some other kind of craft and they want to pick up supplies for that. So at this point, the free art supply closet we haven't purchased any new art supplies in over a year. We started out with purchasing art supplies. A lot of that initial funding went into purchasing art supplies, but in over a year, we've been able to completely sustain the program with donations from the public. And we've served over 800 people at this point. Many of them are artists, but many of them are also educators, other organizations, students and teachers, and people that don't consider themselves to be artists, but just like want to take part in some kind of creative activity. So yeah, it's been amazing for us and has gone really well. And I wouldn't be doing this if it hadn't worked really well for us. So yeah, that's kind of where we've come from. We're also it's completely managed by volunteers at this point now too. So it's very doable to do this whole kind of project with almost no money. Yeah, so that's our little story of how our free art supply closet came into being.
Thank you for sharing. I have a follow-up too. Did you find that like going into it, a lot of us, we don't have a lot of answers. We have a lot of questions and we don't even really know what the questions are because this is so new to us. Were you kind of just learning as you went, like learning as you go, learning as you grow type of thing? Or did you have somebody who was advising you?
We had no one advising us. It was a learn as you go
Okay.
thing. Yeah. There's things that we did in the beginning that we don't do anymore because it didn't work for us. There's things that we've changed along the way as, you know, the world changes around us. I mean, there was lots that we were doing at the beginning of COVID that we don't have to do anymore. One thing that comes to mind that has worked really well for us that may not work in other circumstances is our appointment model. We basically rely on appointments, one, because it helps us to have an idea of how many people are coming in. Two, just because of the way that our building is. If anyone has been to the Free Art Supply Closet before or been inside Broadroom before, you may have noticed that we have a gigantic heavy front door. We have windows on the outside, but they're you can't see through the glass. It's like frosted glass. So if we just have the door wide open all the time, we inside have no idea what's going on outside, who is outside. So for safety reasons, we keep the door closed and have a doorbell on the outside that people ring when they have an appointment to come in. So for us, for our building, for our capacity, having the appointment model works really well. But that's not to say that that is the only way to do it. There's many ways of doing an art supply mutual aid that wouldn't need, or even that an appointment model wouldn't work very well for. So yeah, things like that, just kind of like learning as you go, seeing how other people do like kind of similar things. But as far as I can tell, art supply mutual aid, at least this way, didn't really exist before we started doing it. So I didn't have an exact model to base it off of, but there are things like free food pantries that have inspired us along the way and kind of guided some of our decision making. And even things like Toys for Tots has inspired how we do our holiday art supply drive. So looking for inspiration other places can certainly kind of help guide your decision making, or, you know, guide you to be like, I definitely don't want my thing to look anything like that. So I'm going to do the exact opposite of that. So yeah, but mostly, yes, we've been flying by the seat of our pants this entire time. So
Okay, so we have some questions in the chat. So we can start with Amanda's question. And they said, is it okay if we are attending these trainings purely informationally? If someone's interested in learning more, but not sure that they're ready to commit a project, how would that work?
So the idea of the training is certainly that you would have a project by the end of it, something that's ready to go. If you feel like you're not ready for it yet, it's probably not the right fit for you at this time. I would say that we offer a guide to art supply mutual aid on our website, and to everyone that registered for this class, I'm going to send out a code so you can get the guide for free. And that provides kind of a basis of what we're going to be talking about in the training, and can provide kind of a basis for someone who's not sure that they're ready for it, but wants to start thinking about how it might work for you. But yes, the goal of this training is by the end that you'll have a project that's ready to go and ready to be launched in like the summer of 2023.
Next question is, how many successful projects and mutual aid shops have you all connected with and helped open?
I'd have to look at our website right now and look at the Free Art Supply Mutual Aid Network. Hold on. Let's see. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 apart from our Free Art Supply Closet, 12 if you include our Free Art Supply Closet. And this is on our website. It's the Free Art Supply Network. If you click on it, I could probably just share my screen again so that you could all take a look at it too. So this is on our website. This is the Free Art Supply Mutual Aid Network. And this map shows everywhere in the country and Canada where people have started art supply mutual aid efforts inspired by our Free Art Supply mutual aid program, the Free Art Supply Closet. So on this page here, you can read a little bit more about all of the different art supply mutual aid projects that have sprung up inspired by what we're doing. There are noticeably 0 others in California, which will hopefully change following this program. But yeah, these are great. This is a great resource if you're looking for inspiration for an art supply mutual aid project that isn't exactly like what we're doing, because I don't think any of these are exactly like our Free Art Supply Closet. So yeah, this is a great resource, and it's cool to see where other ones have popped up that are similar to ours.
Okay, and next question. Oh, what does the estimated time commitment look like on a weekly basis?
Good question. I would imagine that the virtual trainings that will be happening between January and March will probably be an hour and a half. So that's like 3 hours of virtual training per month, January through March. And then there's probably some work that you'll be doing outside of the trainings, like homework type stuff that I would imagine would take, somewhere between like 2 to 5 hours per month, maybe. So it's not an overwhelming time commitment, and we will work with the participants to try to find times for our trainings that'll be the best, that'll fit well for everyone or for the most people. And then the one-on-one trainings will be much more flexible. Those are the trainings between April and June. They're not even really trainings, they're just check-ins. So they're guided by what you need, guided by what kinds of support we can provide you, and guided by your own schedule. So those ones will also probably be like an hour to an hour and a half long. The check-ins can be like once or twice a month, more if you need it. And then the site visits will obviously be planned way ahead of time and will work to fit with your schedule. So try not to have it be overly aggressive as far as the time commitment.
And next question, is it okay if you have little to no experience with mutual aid or organizing?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. I think the most important thing is a interest in it, a capacity to take on this kind of project right now, and dedication to it. It took us a year and a half to get to a point where we had consistent appointments, consistent donations, and to the point where we had volunteers that could kind of help run the day-to-day of it. It took 2 years. So yes, just patience is very key too.
And then how do you find or connect with art supply donors?
We've primarily done it through social media. That's what's worked for us. I mean, we started this during the pandemic when everyone was very much online and on their phones. We also benefited from the fact that Broadroom had existed as an arts organization for 2 years already at that point. So we'd already kind of built up a community of artists around us that were aware of us and at least semi paying attention to what we were doing. So we were able to pull from connections that we already had, but Essentially now it's just, once in a while we'll put out like a call on Instagram asking people to make donations. But we're kind of at a point now where we don't even really have to ask for donations. People have found out via like word of mouth that we exist and that you can bring donations here. And you'll probably be shocked to find just how many creatives are so grateful to have a place to donate their art supplies that they no longer need or use, but don't want to like throw them away. Like we really tapped into something, a needed resource in our community that I would imagine is a needed resource in almost any other community. So that will certainly be something that we'll dive into much more in depth in the training program though, how to find donors and how to source donations.
Okay, and then next question is, how important is it to have a permanent physical space for the project?
Not important at all. You do not have to have a permanent physical space. Lots of mutual aid does not have a permanent physical space. They do pop-ups wherever they can get space. So not at all necessary to have a permanent physical space. And I would even suggest not having that be a goal at this point. Our free art supply closet does not pay for our warehouse that we're in. The warehouse pays for the free art supply closet. So yeah, I don't let that keep you from applying. It's not at all necessary.
Okay, and then what size population do you expect is required to sustain a project? Are rural areas more difficult?
That's a good question. I've never done mutual aid in a rural area. I'm actually specifically looking for a guest speaker to speak to rural mutual aid efforts in the training program because I don't want to leave rural areas out, but I personally don't have the expertise to be able to speak to how to do rural mutual aid effectively. Obviously, Sacramento is a fairly large city, and in places with a larger population, there would just be more artists and more people doing art. But mutual aid is also very effective in rural communities in a more general sense or a broader sense of the word. So I don't think that there's a reason why it couldn't work. It just might look different than what we're doing, which is why I'm looking for guest speakers to speak to that. So unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for that, but it is something that we're like actively working towards figuring out how to get someone to come and speak on that specifically. So yeah, again, I wouldn't say don't let your rural location keep you from applying if you're interested, because we definitely want to figure out how to make it work in any community.
Okay, and then the next question, will the program support arts education and arts education programming for workshops where supplies are offered for free? From Cindy.
Potentially, yeah. As long as the art supplies are being given away for free and that's an integral part of the workshops that you're planning, then yeah, that could be something that we would be interested in supporting with this program.
I know, Bernadette, you had a hand raised. Did you want to ask a question? I believe that was the stack in the chat. If you still have a question.
Hi, so the question was, I ended up typing it in the chat so you can pass over these if you see them. The first one was, will the Broadwell continue to be financial supportive for aid program once it is complete, if we were to be given the award, or would they connect us with resources to stay funded afterwards? to keep our program afloat. Is that something with the resources you said you had in mind that would continue to help us as well? And that's my first question. My second question is, as far as long-term locations for our aid project, how would Broadroom help us with resources to lock down a space that we can permanently call home for this?
So the funding that we got from the California Arts Council is for us to put on this training. Broadroom itself does not have any funding or not much funding to provide to participants in the program. The training will include helping folks to identify ways to make their own program financially sustainable, ways to do fundraising for the program, basically to follow our model of how we've kept it going. As far as finding like physical space, we can provide resources and help and speak from our own experience of finding physical locations. But we don't have any funding or much funding. We have like a small stipend that we can provide to our 10 participants, but we don't have any like ongoing funding. We don't have any ongoing funding for this training beyond this training. This funding is for the coming year through the California Arts Council. And we'll pursue funding for another training in the future if this one goes well and feels like a good use of time and resources. But unfortunately, funding for participants was not something that was funded by the California Arts Council, but we will be providing support and training to help find resources and establish resources in your own community to keep the project going.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just 2 more questions, and if anybody has anything else, feel free to add it to the chat. Love is asking what happens if someone can't make the scheduled time of the sessions or has to miss a few?
Ideally, if you are doing the training with like other people, with a team of people, then someone from the team would be there at every single meeting. And I mean, we'll have like a, grace and leeway for emergencies and life things come up and you can't make it to every single training, and they'll be recorded and you'll be able to review them at a later time. But a lot of this training is going to be centered on building community within like the cohort so that we can provide each other with resources and support and help along the way, even after the training's over, so that community building that happens within a group is really important. So I would say that, there's 6 virtual trainings that will happen. And if you make it to at least 5, that would be ideal. I mean, the ideal is that everyone's there for all 6, but if you can't make it to 1, then, it's not the end of the world. So, yeah.
Are you planning on doing did someone else want to say something? Okay. Are you planning on doing the training again at a later date for people who can't make the commitment for this training block? Is there a way to keep in the loop for that?
Yeah, so I would really like to make this a regular thing. Like I said, this grant funding is just for this iteration of the training, but we will pursue grant funding again next year. So just stay tuned, and the ways that you will find out about future trainings will be probably similar to the ways that you found out about this training, either Instagram or by being on our newsletter. And we will be sure to let everyone know as soon as we know when another training will happen.
Okay, last question we have for now is, what's an effective team size?
Personally, I think that if you have like 2 or 3 people that are really committed and have diverse experiences and skills, that's probably ideal. But in my experience, it's feasible to do it with basically one person. That's kind of how I started, was doing it mostly on my own. And then help from Julia was also very integral in getting it up off the ground in the beginning. Julia did a lot of the setup and getting everything kind of ready to go back in 2020 with me. And then since then, we've added some volunteers who make it, well, volunteers who have literally changed my life and made everything so much better. So yeah, I mean, I think that mutual aid ideally is a hierarchical system and people share responsibilities. And in our case, it's probably kind of hierarchical because I've been the one that's been managing it mostly for most of its lifetime, but I'm trying to step away from that and having volunteers have much more leeway and decision making on the day-to-day of the free art supply closet and what is out, and they know better what's in our storage areas. So I think it can evolve over time. And I think that if you have a team of 2 or 3 people that are super committed right now, that's great. If you go into it on your own and just plan for one day growing your team, that's also fine. And if you have a larger team of like 10 people that are all really into it, you know, they'll kind of naturally find their places within the project. So I don't know if there's like an ideal, but you know, I would maybe not say do it all by yourself because it is kind of overwhelming. But if you are doing it by yourself, then I applaud your commitment, and I'm sure that you can make it happen on your own too. Okay. So we will have time for more questions at the end. We only have about 20 minutes left, and I want to get through the application overview before we get too stuck on just answering a bunch of questions that might be answered if we continue. So I'm going to try to do this again. Okay. So we are going to move to the application overview. So the application is available on our website right now. It's at this link here, and I'm going to throw this link in the chat, hopefully, so that you can follow along on the website if you'd like to, while I talk about the application. Okay, so you're going to start the application by selecting a primary contact, which might be very obvious if you're applying by yourself. But if you're applying with a group, club, organization, or business, just choose one person to be your primary point of contact for this application. It'll be the person that we'll be emailing back and forth with, essentially. And then if there are others in your group who will be attending the training, include their names in the box provided. If you're applying as a member of a formal group, club, organization, or business, include the name of that club, organization, business, whatever it is in the box provided. And if your club, group, organization, or business has a social media account that already exists that you'll probably be using to promote your project, then include that. But if you don't have a social media account that you'll be using to promote this project at this time, that is totally fine. You can leave the box blank and it will not reflect poorly on your application. All right. So your proposed project, this is the opportunity to share with us your dream for Art Supply Mutual Aid in your community. You don't have to model your project on our free art supply closet. Rather, you can consider your own skills and strengths as well as your capacity with the needs of the folks that you'll be serving. Some examples of that could include a free food style pantry, but as an art supply closet. I've actually spoken with people who want to add art supplies to an existing free food pantry, which I think is a great idea. It could be a shelf in an existing store or organization, or it could just be like a regular meetup in a public space. So you don't have to have a physical space. You don't have to have the overhead of rent or employees or any of the other stuff that goes along with a physical space. You can do pop-up mutual aid wherever you are. And I would say that this is one of the more important parts of the application, not only for us, but for you, because it will be referred to throughout the application. And it provides kind of a jumping off point for you as you think about joining this training. And then next we ask you to describe your community. So who will you be serving with your project? So for us, for example, the Free Art Supply Closet serves primarily working class artists, teachers, students, and children in the greater Sacramento area. Your project might be more specific in a certain area or demographic or school or neighborhood, or it could be really broad like ours. We just want to get a sense of who the community is that you'll be serving with your project. And then next, we want to hear why Art Supply Mutual Aid is important to you. So explain to us why this project is important to you and your community. Why is Art Supply Mutual Aid specifically needed with the people that you're serving? And what is it about mutual aid that is important to you? For us, we've created a space to house an important community resource that everyone can access. And it's building resilience and making art available and accessible to everyone who comes into the Free Art Supply Closet or participates in the Free Art Cart program, where we deliver art supplies from the Free Art Supply Closet to community members who have limited mobility. Okay, so then we ask what your experience is with activism, organizing, or mutual aid. Like I said, it's not imperative that you actually have experience with activism, organizing, or mutual aid, but any experience you can show that shows leadership, that your ability to follow through, and a commitment to mutual aid will be helpful for us to know in this part of the application. And then we move to experience and skills. That's more general or broad than just specifically your experience or skills with mutual aid. So there are many experiences and skills that are useful when designing and implementing an art supply mutual aid project. Consider everything from conception to sustaining a project for years to come, and then assess how your skills will be helpful in each step of that process. So let us know what those skills are and how you'll make use of them in this project. I would suggest mapping out your proposed project from beginning to end and assessing what skills are needed to make it work. And then considering what skills you have and what skills other people on your team might have, that'll be useful, and just tell us about it. You know, everything from like social media to financial literacy to event planning and volunteer coordination, all of that kind of experience, even customer service experience, is so important in what we do at the Free Art Supply Closet. So if you've worked a retail job, you'll probably have a skill that's useful in what we do. Okay. And then we want to hear from you about how you could sustain a art supply mutual aid program. It's not meant to be a one-time project or event. So we want to hear from you about how you plan to keep your project going beyond the end of the training. We want this to be something that fits with your capacity and with the community that you'll be serving. So just use this section of the application to explain your idea for how it could be sustainable. It doesn't have to be like a fully formed thing. It can be kind of a loose plan, but just so that we know that you're thinking about it being a sustained program or project, not just a one-time event that you might host. For example, at Broadroom, I have now a team of volunteers that can manage the free art supply closet without me having to be super involved. And I have Julia, who I can lean on to support with some of the program stuff that goes along with the free art supply closet. So if for some reason I was no longer able to be the point person for the free art supply closet, I'm building a team that could step in if I needed to step away. So it's not fully formed right now. There isn't like one person that can come in and just plop into where I am and do it all, but it's there's a team growing around it who could take over if I had to step away. Not that I'm planning on doing that anytime soon, but you know, just that's how it could be sustained if I wasn't here anymore. All right. And then the last question on the application is, what are you most excited to learn? So to some extent, we will be designing the virtual training based on the needs of participants. So for this reason, it's important to hear from applicants about what you would want to learn in your training. So things like rural mutual aid would be something that you could put in here. So that we know that that's something that would be helpful to include in the virtual training. We do have basics lined up and kind of mapped out for what the training will look like, but specific things that would be extremely helpful to you based on, you know, where your skills are, what you may or may not have experience with. Those kinds of things are important for us to know. So that as we design the training, it fits with what trainees need. Okay, and that's the end. So we have about 9 more minutes for questions. And just so you know, on the website right now, here is the Art Supply Mutual Aid Training Program information page. The applications are due on October 31st. And if you have questions following this training or after the follow-up email, you can email me at hello@broadroom.org right there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and yeah, open it up for questions.
So we had one more question from last time from Cindy. She says, I appreciate you mentioning that mutual aid models are fairly new. Will the trainings help us to define and communicate with the target audience?
Yes, yeah. A lot of what we did in the beginning of the free art supply closet and continue to do now is explaining to people what mutual aid is, what art supply mutual aid is, and why it's important. So all of those things will be covered in the training. And yeah, making it kind of easier to talk to people who may not be familiar with it, and how to talk to people who tend to think that art supplies aren't as important as food. I'm not arguing that food, water, and housing are less important than art supplies, but I don't see why everyone can't have access to all of their human rights at the same time. And access to art and creativity is one of your human rights. So yes, we will talk about that. And that kind of like messaging with people. I also am aware of the fact that not all of California is as blue as maybe LA and the Bay Area and Sacramento are to a certain extent. So also having some kind of like communication training around talking about mutual aid in places that might be more resistant to something that, if you don't use the right words, can sound very communist, and that can be a huge turnoff to people in certain areas. But if you talk about mutual aid using different words, then they can get on board with it. So yeah, some kind of like communication training, especially if you're in an area that's not as open to mutual aid as other areas might be. That would be something to include in the what you expect section so that we kind of have an idea of what your needs are. But yeah, basically, yes, we will be talking about that kind of messaging for sure.
Okay, next question. Is there a finite number of applicants that will be accepted into the program?
Yes, for this first round, we are accepting up to 10 applicants. But if you represent a group or an organization or a business, you're going to have a team of people that are working on the project with you, then that whole team counts as one application. So, if you are a part of an existing mutual aid group in Fresno and you have 5 people on that team that want to be a part of the Art Supply Mutual Aid project, then you would apply with one application as that team. You would have a point person and then you would list everyone else involved. And that would be one application, although it would be 5 people that would be coming to all of the trainings. I hope that makes sense. We're limiting it to 10 people for this time so that we can have a decent size stipend for our participants. I think that we're budgeted for like $200 to $250 per participant. And so that we can provide meaningful one-on-one check-ins. If we did much more than 10, I don't think that I'd have enough time to be able to meet with everyone and provide them with meaningful one-on-one check-ins. So that's the reason why it is limited to 10 people this time around. That may change in the future, in future iterations of this training, but yes, it is 10 participants this time around.
Okay, and the last question we have for now is, do you think it's feasible for someone with a full-time job to be able to do this on their own?
It depends on how you structure your program or your project. If you structure it the way that we do it, probably not. It's my full-time job doing the free art supply closet. But if you do it as like a monthly pop-up at like a local park, it's probably feasible to do it while maintaining a full-time job. Lots of people do mutual aid on a volunteer basis while having jobs outside of it. So yes, I think it's feasible. I think that it will probably it'll be a lot of work for sure, but if you're dedicated and want to make it happen, and you're open to it being more of a ad hoc meetup thing versus a physical space, then I think it's doable while you have a full-time job. Any other questions? Anyone want to just unmute yourself and speak up? We've got 3 more minutes.
Thank you. This was very helpful. I didn't know how to piece together a lot of questions, but I feel like everyone had really great questions.
Great.
We have one last question from Cindy that says, will there be meetings with all applicants during the training? And is there potential for virtual collaborations with other teams?
Yes. So the virtual trainings that'll happen between January and March will be all participants together on the training. So we will have opportunity for all of the participants to meet each other. We'll all go through the training together. You'll be able to build contacts with them. And I'm also working right now on building my own connections with the people that have started free art supply closet inspired projects outside of California, so that we can help each other, but then everyone that's in this training will be folded into the free art supply network. And so we'll be growing together this network of people that we can lean on and go to for like resources, and that we can like celebrate wins together. So I am hoping that after the training, we'll, 20 plus people that are all doing this similar thing together that we can lean on and get resources from. Okay. Well, if no one else has any more questions, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to do this training. I hope that this was helpful to you, and just want to reiterate that if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll be sending out a follow-up email soon, and so look for that. You can also just reply to that with any questions that you have. And yeah, I look forward to reading all of your applications. I'm very excited and can't wait to bring Art Supply Mutual Aid all over California. It'll just be so fun to see how it all grows. So yeah, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I will talk to some of you soon. Okay, bye everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.